Joining us to discuss House leadership on critical mineral security, please welcome U.S. Congresswoman representing California's 40th District, the Honorable Young Kim, and U.S. Congressman representing California's 6th District, the Honorable Bera. In conversation with White House correspondent at Fox Business Network, Edward Lawrence.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for getting up so early. First, let's kick this off the right way. Thanks for the Safe Summit for having us. This is an important discussion. We have here Northern California versus Southern California, but this rare
Southern
earth
California versus
Southern
versus Northern.
Yes.
But the rare earth mineral sort of transcends this thing. This is something that both Republicans and Democrats can get behind, right? You guys have introduced the Dominance Act. I guess first tell me, the Dominance Act, it really codifies or would codify the U.S. being the lead for rare earth minerals going forward. It would also create an agency to help facilitate that and sort of finance or help try to finance some workers or get workers for that industry there. I guess Representative Kim, why is it important, do you think, to have the Dominance Act that you guys have both introduced?
Well, that's exactly what we're trying to do. Our government cannot govern through executive order or just great ideas with initiatives. As you know, when we are already behind China, it's a fact that everybody here knows, but it bears repeating. Right? China already dominates over 70 to 90% of mining and processing. And when we travel overseas, recognizing how vulnerable the United States is, we're always talking about we just can't do this alone. And so with the initiative coming from this administration, putting a focus on domestic production, but even with expediting the permitting timeline and cutting it in half, from our current average of 29 years, we're not going to be able to meet that demand. So we are trying to work with our trusted partners, and that's exactly what this is trying to do. We are trying to codify what has been fragmented, different agencies, different industries doing different things, but we need to put that into permanency and give the industry the durability that they're looking for. And that's what we're trying to do in the Dominance Act.
Right, and the bill is moving forward. It gets marked up on the 13th of May, so early next month. So Representative Bera, Republicans and Democrats don't agree on much. How do you get this bill moved to the floor?
I mean, this has been a bipartisan effort from day one, bicameral. Senator Ricketts, Senator Coons are leading a lot of the effort on the Senate side. So this is about national security. It's not a Democratic or Republican issue. And the reason why, again, as the chairwoman said, it's so important to do this through Congress is we've got to codify the legislation, because what we're doing is we're making big-term investments, right? We're reviving mining, but it's also refining capacity. We've got great mining companies. The chairwoman and I had a chance to go down to Peru and visit the Freeport copper mine. They're very modern mining. But part of the choke point is when we ask them, where are you refining all this copper? It's still all going to China. And we've got to rebuild refining capacity in the United States. So rare earths aren't all that rare. We've actually got a lot in the United States, and a lot of our allies do. But we don't have that refining capacity, and that's some of what we've got to refine.
What made you two come together on this then, Representative Kim?
Again, the recognition that we're very vulnerable. We saw that last year when China put export controls on rare earth element minerals. And so we really wanted to make it into a permanency. After we met, as Bera just mentioned, we went to Peru together last year, and our allies are asking us that give us the alternatives, but U.S. consistently do not show up with the alternative that is consistent, clear, and something that they can rely on. So that's why we came together, and I'm glad that there are, there is no similar bill in the Senate, but in different provisions. We have four very important pillars in the Dominance Act, and in the Senate, they have individual bills. And so we're going to put that all together and make sure that, again, the industry is looking for clarity. We're going to give it by passing this Dominance Act.
You mentioned the pillars. It's to codify the participation in allied materials participation, to establish a Bureau of Energy Security and Diplomacy with a Senate-confirmed Assistant Secretary authorizing energy security compacts and expanding a Fulbright critical minerals mining fellowship program. So it brings it all together. So Representative Bera, China has 70% of the mining around the globe, but that number is actually going down with the deals that have been made recently. But 90% of the processing, with all of the regulations that you have to go through in the United States, you could spark an environmental study. How do you get through the red tape in the U.S., and would this bill help do that?
You know, this bill would, but we're already working through it with our allies around the world. I was meeting with the CEO of Korea Zinc, that is investing in Tennessee, bringing the most modern technology in refining capacity to, again, rebuild our ability to refine some of these minerals. And we've got to do a little bit more of that. We do have to move through the permitting process a little bit faster if we want to get that going. What's interesting, the environmental community has not actually spoken out against the Dominance Act because they understand if we want to move to the best battery technology, renewable energies, we're going to need good access to these elements, and it is part of that clean energy future. So again, we've not seen that pushback.
So Representative Kim, the act specifically asks the U.S. to work with allies in order to come and create this critical supply with this. If President Trump is already doing that, why does it need to be in a bill?
Because it ends at the end of this term, and when the next administration comes in, there is different priorities coming in. Just like that, that is the shortcomings of MSP, right? It was a great idea, great vision, and it was a great diplomatic platform, but it lacked structure.
And MSP is a Biden era.
Yes, Mineral Security Partnership.
Right.
And so in February of this year, when Secretary Rubio chaired the ministerial level conference, critical minerals ministerial, and 54 countries came together, they saw the need to have some long-term process, and that's why they formed FORGE. But yet again, FORGE, unless it's codified into permanency and give the industry the durability and give the partners, ally partners, to be able to say, okay, U.S. is the partner of choice, we can work with them, then we're not going to be able to do that. I want to ask
you about this. So, because when the Biden administration came in, they basically wiped out everything the first Trump administration did. Trump came back into office, wiped out everything basically Biden did. So how do you get off this merry-go-round then, Representative Bera?
Well, that's why it's so important for Congress to do its job, right? This is an authorizing bill. We should then, codify it, appropriate the resources, put it in law, so it's not one administration or another. The reason why I think the partnership with our allies are so important and why certainty to industry is we're not talking about small investments. We're talking about really big investments, whether that's going into Africa. I was in Mongolia last summer. The Koreans are very active in Mongolia. The Mongolians want us there. So this is about U.S. companies with Japanese companies, Korean companies, European companies, working together to make some of these investments, develop these resources, develop the processing, refining capacity in a way so we aren't so vulnerable on a choke point, in this case, Beijing.
And I've had numerous conversations with South Korea, who is currently chairing MSP right now, and they welcome the FORGE, but yet again, they told us, can we make it into a permanency, because they are looking for predictability. American investors like Freeport, Newmont, TechMed, and Cobra, we met with them numerous times, and they are ready to lead. They got the investments, but they're not going to do that unless they know they can predict for the next 5-10 years ahead, because these companies work with long-term planning. They don't just do it on a whim.
Right. So President Trump is going to China in a couple of weeks. So Representative Kim, would the Dominance Act moving on in the Congress give the president a little more oomph, so to speak, when having those negotiations with China?
I hope he brings this up because it is so important for us, again, and show that Congress is ready to lead. The authority to codify his wonderful initiatives. This administration has done a great job, right? We talked about the FORGE. We talked about Project Vault with stockpiling our critical mineral supply chains. So we are already leading. If he can talk to China and tell them how Congress is ready, we have investments across the country. I mean, obviously, Xi Jinping may not like it because we're trying to do this with our trusted partners outside of China, but we need to give them the pressure, and I hope President Trump brings this up.
I wanted to ask you, Representative Bera, now it's hard enough getting through the House. Let's say we do that. Let's say you get to the floor. There's bipartisan support clearly for this bill. What conversations have you had in the Senate, and do you think it will come up in the Senate in one bill?
Yeah, so the Senate's taken a slightly different approach. They've put the same elements of the Dominance Act, but in 4 different bills. I'm going to guess we'll mark it up in the House. I don't think it'll be controversial. Both Chairman Mass and Ranking Member Meeks are on board and supportive. Right. So I think it'll move through. We may even try to do something on the House floor, bringing them up under suspension, again, with other bills that other committees have. The Senate will work their process. I'm going to guess what happens is it all comes together in the NDAA and gets attached to the NDA, because this really is a national security issue, and then moves. Obviously, I think the chairwoman and I would love to vote on these and have them go to the president's desk as an independent bill, but it is a process.
I mentioned that earlier, right? A Senate doesn't have the similar bill like ours, which is comprehensive, but the Senate, like Senator Coons and Senator Ricketts, they're working on a energy minerals compact. Right. That is really critical, important. And then there is another, like I said, separate bills that is moving through. I don't think they're going to do that as one package like we're doing, but the fact that they're doing it and paying attention to every component of the bill. One, we're going to codify United States participation in MSP through FORGE. That's going to be permanent. We are going to have a Bureau of Energy Security Diplomacy. And as you mentioned, with the Senate-confirmed Assistant Secretary level, we'll be able to coordinate all of our activities across different agencies. But more importantly, we're going to have a separate the pillar is the education portion of it. We're going to use the Fulbright program at the state to focus on educating the next generation to pay attention to the critical mineral sector.
I want to ask Representative Bera. So then, what are the chances this gets bogged down in politics? Then we've seen the DHS still needs to be funded. We've seen we have a number of FISA still has to go through. What are the chances this gets finished this year in this Congress?
We'll find out what happens this week on those 2 areas.
Yeah.
Again, this one hasn't been a controversial area, right? Strong bipartisan support on the House side. We're not hearing any controversy on the Senate side. And our staffs have been working closely with the administration to make sure they're being bought in as well, and that we're taking any of their concerns and writing that into the legislation. So this is just, again, if there's a bright spot of something really positive for the United States and for our national security and our energy security, this is one that should move.
The House Speaker is Republican. Have you had any conversations with him? How do you light a fire under the House Speaker to move this along once it's marked up?
We got to get over FISA, as mentioned. Yeah. We got to get over funding the DHS, and we have a whole list of other things that we need to work on. I have not had the chance to be honest with you, with speakers specifically on Dominance Act, but it is a critical, important legislation. We got to get it done, and my hope is that we will get it done once we get all those fires put out, and put the Dominance Act on the docket, and let's get it done.
This seems like one of those areas that you could show voters that there is cooperation among the 2 parties.
I mean, I'd suggest you could bring this up under a suspension, which requires a 2/3 vote, and it would pass.
Yeah, an interesting way to go.
We'll do our part on the House side. I ask the senators, please, and anybody who is in the audience, please contact our Senate to do the same.
Yeah, and that's it. Awareness, right? You need to get awareness out for this. And how do you do that among the Republican, Democratic Party? Especially the elections are coming up, and the Democrats believe that they can take the House. How do you keep this in the forefront?
I mean, this one again is not. I don't look at it as a Democratic or Republican issue. I look at it as, our future economy, our future energy. Semiconductors depend on it. Battery technology depends on it. Our national security depends on adequate access to these supplies. So I've not run into any issue on the Democratic side. So.
And the same thing here. I mean, we are looking for something like this, in order to keep up and compete against our adversaries.
And I wanted to ask you, with the last couple minute that we have, I want to ask you, this is certainty for businesses too. You talked about the large investments made. What does this offer the business community who's looking to invest in this rare earth mineral and expand to that? What would this bill do for them?
It will give them the predictability. It will give them the opportunity to say, okay, now I can finally see that there is an energy compact, there is a critical minerals that we can work on here. Like you said, we're giving them the predictability to plan ahead and budget ahead. Look, 5 years from now, China will still be one of the dominant major players in this critical mineral supply chain areas. But the difference is, by passing Dominance Act, we will be ahead of them, and we will give the market the predictability. We'll give the long-term tool that will last from one administration to another. It will last different cycles, so it doesn't change the goal from one election cycle to another.
And we're out of time, but it could show also the unity among lawmakers to the world that the U.S. is ready to step forward and be a leader in this. I appreciate it. Thank you.
We've been ready, so let's get to it.
Representative Bera, appreciate it. Thank you, from the great state of California. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.